Drums of War, Chapter 49, The Weight of Names. In the void between stars, Bugsy weren't trying to be no big damn hero or nothing. He were just out for loot. That were it. No saving nobody. No freedom fighting. No daring do or whatever. See? But it didn't matter nohow, since his cunning plan to get that loot just happened to result in freeing all them trade prisoners. It were a right pain to get away from the media and back to his completely legitimate salvage business. Cameras made appropriating the completely legitimate cargo from entirely legal sources a lot more difficult. So now the longshoremen were actually rolling for actual salvage instead of salvage. The crew were not happy about that, but fame has its downsides. "This blows," Snake said as he lazily piloted the ship through all of the nothing, dodging the nothing with a minuscule fraction of his considerable and entirely wasted skill. Knuckles piped up from where he lounged. "Shut your trap! Nothing to do over it. Too many eyes on us for being the big damn heroes." "Look," Callahan said with an annoyed twitch to his tail, "the war's pretty much over, and all we gotta do is be seen doing salvage work for a while. Then it's back to the more exciting, more profitable jobs. Nothing to it." "You think I don't know that?" Snake muttered as he lazily altered the trajectory. "You sure there's a debris field around here?" "Yeah," Bugsy said. "A couple of those asshat toxins or whatever, and a merchant vessel went down somewhere around here. Figured it'd give us a couple of weeks to goof off while we work." "Speaking of goofing off," Knuckles said slyly, "you get anywhere with that book? Your best had concluded me dashing good looks." "You mean how people dash away when they look at you?" Fingers asked from where he was lazily scrolling through the potential salvage sites. "I think he's very dapper," Callahan said as he fine-tuned the sensor array as he'd noticed something. "Love is blind," Snake retorted absent-mindedly. Bugsy Malone got a wicked grin as he sighed. "I think I'm going to disappoint all of the shippers when I tell them the pilot isn't dating you, Knuckles." Snake sputtered like a two-stroke engine trying to start on a cold day. I'm not even game, Snake," Snake said in a voice dripping with condescending concern. "It is of no consequence to the shippers whether you're gay. You have a twink body, therefore you must be shipped with the burliest man aboard." "That's ridiculous. I don't have a twink body." "Yeah, you do," Callahan muttered absently. "Hi, laddie. If you weren't straight, it's simply how things like this work, dear boy. Shippers are indeed capricious creatures." "Maybe I can make that ambiguous," Bugsy said thoughtfully. "Buster, you tell them I like tits, big bouncy tits, and I like to stick my face in them and go—" "Hey, boss," Callahan interrupted. "I think you'll want to see this." Bugsy once again chided himself for not upgrading his captain's chair to have all them fancy screens and such before he sauntered over to the screen to take a look. It was a section of hull plating from the Seafarer's negotiation writing along it. Maybe it was a prow piece. He knew how to read it, and even if he didn't, the ship could translate with no problems. Anyhow, he'd learned since the Star Sailors were good customers, never broke their word, and some of them had reasonable ideas about excise, customs, tariffs, and controlled substances, just like him, which is why he could read out loud what it said. "Among the star tides we sing." Ah, fuck! The entire crew groaned and put their faces in their palms. They'd accidentally did something heroic again. Aboard the Frank Butler. "I don't see why I'd need to be an officer to be an instructor, sir. Most of my instructors were sergeants." Corporal Peter George scoffed petulantly. The rat bastard of a colonel had cornered him as he was between the bars at PT. That is, physical therapy and not physical training. The doctors were pleased with his progress, and Corporal George was getting frustrated with what he considered overcaution. "It's not about you, trooper." "What is it about, sir?" "There are men with their boots down right now who deserve a commission more than I do," Corporal George responded as he took another struggling step forward and tested putting a little more weight on the left leg rather than his arms gripping the horizontal bars. Corporal George regarded Colonel Fido Ekenbrand and found that old Doggo's tattered ear and graying fur about his muzzle made him look wary as he sighed ostentatiously. "You're a big damn hero, kid. Personnel thinks it'll be bad PR if you don't get your commission. That and your leadership material." "I can be a leader as a non-com just fine, sir," he grumbled as he caught himself at the bars and glared at his left knee. "Is every last one of you too damn stubborn to get promoted?" the colonel asked with obvious exasperation. "John doesn't mind it," Corporal George pointed out. "Oh, you think so, do you? Just because he wants to be a CEO of the Lost Boys eventually doesn't mean that you won't be a pain in the arse in the chain of command now. Jesus Christ. The last name George is a byword for pain in the arse across the entire RNI. Corporal George stifled a laugh before he said, Sir, the schools want me to be a sharpshooting and infiltration instructor. They don't want me to teach field ethics. They don't want me to teach tactics. Well, maybe a little tactics. But they don't want me to teach strategy. They don't want me for logistics. They want me to teach enlisted men how to be effective behind enemy lines with minimal or no support. Being an officer would get in the way of that. I'm not being stubborn out of family tradition. Colonel Erkenbrand scoffed. You're not only being stubborn out of family tradition, and we're in medbay having a casual conversation. Consider rank disregarded and dispense with the sirs for now. All right, we're not considering rank. You're a fucking arsehole for springing on me when I can't get away. Colonel Erkenbrand roared in laughter and clutched his sides as Corporal George simply scowled at him. When he recovered, he managed to say, Yeah, but I didn't want you to get away, did I? Corporal George sighed and leaned up against one of the bars so that he could wipe the sweat from his brow. His skin felt uncomfortably soft and smooth since the dye was removed. Then he decided to actually take the situation seriously. I honestly don't know why they don't want to bump me up to the E-scale rank or two. Sure, my family's never comfortable with getting a promotion, but when it's appropriate, we always take a swing. When the Republic asks, you try. You don't turn her down. Aye, that is the way you are. It's not about you, though. Explain it to me, please. Colonel Erkenbrand unconsciously ran his fingers across the tattered edge of his ear and said, It's about the civvies. Now I'm more confused. What you did has been blown way out of proportion in the media. You ask any random civvy what happened, and they'll say that you rode an asteroid down to the planet, became one with the shadows, started the sleeve result with a whisper, and single-handedly found and decrypted the old servers, all while rescuing an innocent child and using your magic powers to heal him. Christ himself, aiming at my drop pod. Corporal George swore bitterly. Yep. Is there anything I can do about that? Probably not. I'm getting orders of soul, aren't I? Aye. Fuck. You'll survive, Colonel Erkenbrand said with a shrug. And Corporal George decided to try another forward step. Gideon? He doesn't know about how you're being talked about. He's mainly been asking after your recovery and focusing on learning commercial English. Corporal George's right leg shook a little, but held steady. He nodded at it approvingly. I heard that we might take a couple mil as the refugees instead of including them in the Strike One, he said slowly. Turns out the policy we made for single-system empires who think discovering how to sail hyperspace makes them masters of the universe wasn't made for an empire we met a couple 100,000 years after making that mistake. Gideon doesn't want to be anywhere I'm not. Aye. Medcom noticed. Adoption is a pretty big part of my granddad's story. It'll fit right into the popular, myth? Popular myth about my family, if I was to insist that in order to give Gideon the attention he'll need, I should have a commission on my plate too. I think the civvies would like that as a story why. That way we don't feel that I got a raw deal by not getting enough medals and promotions. Colonel Erkenbrand grinned and said, Sometimes we forget just how clever you Georges can be. I'll pass that along, and maybe we can get the proper rumors started in the public. I go through 6 rounds of surgery, and Orcs put it all up and down my spine, and now this bullshit, Corporal George grumbled. PR. Fucking PR. I did my job, that's all. We all did our fucking jobs, and I just happened to be the guy to find Gideon, and I just happened to be the guy at that tower during the drop. Any other RNI trooper wouldn't have done things differently. Colonel Erkenbrand said nothing. He still managed to ask, Oh, really? Fine. Maybe another trooper wouldn't have made it out alive, or has been as effective as a sniper as me. But you know what I mean. By the way, Colonel Erkenbrand mused, we're headed for the rendezvous with the Speaking Softly. Instead of heading to Sanctuary, let me guess, PR wants all 4 of us to be together for a photo op. Well, that too. Your being present is also the right thing to do. We just got word. We found her. Corporal George almost didn't realize why the room was suddenly tilting, and only just stopped himself from crashing to the deck by tensing his arms and gripping the rails more tightly. He tried to speak, but found something sticking in his throat. He swallowed and tried again. We sing? He choked. Aye, a sippy salvage ship of all things found her. Roger. Grave Reclamation Services haven't gotten there yet. And the crew. Colonel Erkenbrand checked his tablet. The longshoreman crew were instructed not to transmit any identifying information on any of the remains recovered. The colors? Recovered. On a shuttle descending towards the Exarch homeworld, Lieutenant Emily Sullivan was nervous. Her team was nervous. Hell, even Cap was nervous, and Emily was pretty sure the brigade director was nervous too. They were going down to the SAR work after the Lost Boys up, and the MIA count was 0. Word on the transport ship was that the old man himself commanded the entire battle. 0 MIA. They weren't the elite for no reason, and people don't get nicknames like the old man for no reason either. So yeah, Emily thought being nervous was pretty justified. She checked her power armor again to make sure that all of her badges were painted on properly, and there were no smudges marring it. The gentle hum of the shuttle's engine picked up pace as it slowed down. Almost down. Well, just because they shared a shuttle with higher-ups was no reason to put off doing her job. "All right, people," she began, and noted Cap was listening into her channel by his flashing icon in her HUD. "It's a little different this time. The Lost Boys don't have any MIA, but that doesn't mean that we don't have work to do. It just shifts our priorities to civilian rescue and triage. Word is that there was a slave revolt down there, and it got pretty nasty for a few days. Slave revolts mean armed riots. Armed riots with heavy weapons means structural damage. Structural damage means people hurt, people trapped, and people dying. Like always, we don't have much time, and those civilians have less." "Yes, boss," Dr. Sarah Patel, MedTech Juan Hernandez, Specialist Alexei Petrov, and MedTech Jamal Watkins said in unison. Emily scowled and said, "Reading, no questions, no comments. Come on, people, get your heads in the game." "Do we know anything about the preliminary work by the RNI or Army?" Juan asked tentatively. "LZ and AOE have been cleared of all Republican casualties. All WIA have been evac and being treated in the ships. Navy's handling that respect. Hell, even Army wounded are getting evac to orbit. RNI and Army Medical Corps have just joined field hospitals to service the locals. The Army's been trying to keep another riot from erupting, and the RNI's been doing SAR work." "About that hospital," Dr. Patel began, "do we know anything about its capacity? How about staff and supply?" "Overcapacity, understaffed, and undersupplied. We're all slated for SAR sortie, but more of the Corps is coming down to expand the field hospital, build aid stations, and fill out staff. Word is we're landing an entire light transport on the planet to get a handle on the supply situation." "So, you met the old man's son, the one they're calling One-Shot?" Jamal asked. Emily's helmet started getting stuffy for some reason, as she responded, "Well, you guys were there too. You helped pull the guy out. We didn't go visit his bedside and chat for 3 hours, Dr. Patel teased. Well, he's a very good conversationalist." "Do you know if he's as good-looking as I am?" Alexei asked, humor taking the edge off of his nerves. "He was still dyed and altered for his mission when I saw him. If I didn't know he was human, I wouldn't have been able to tell." "Well, he's probably a goblin person," Juan said behind a grin, "and we'll see if love is blind." Emily scowled at him through the faceplate. "Did he mention what his father is really like?" Jamal asked quietly. "A few things. Pete respects the crap out of his pops. He thinks of him as a solid rock in a storm, or like a guiding star. I don't know. It's hard to describe the vibe I got." "Good vibe?" Jamal asked. Emily nodded, and some minute tension left behind Jamal's eyes. Emily was getting good at reading his minute expressions. "Any questions that aren't about my potential love life?" she asked with a mock annoyance. "Seismic activity," Alexei offered. "Minimal. Shouldn't get in the way of AleCuevo." "And the locals?" Juan asked. "Mostly calmed down after the Emperor's speech. They've been getting into fistfights over how they should master themselves and become mighty in wisdom. They haven't shown much interest in attacking Republican forces. But keep your heads up anyway. Looks like Cap wants to talk. Jamal's in charge while Teacher's away." Then, once she'd keyed her comms to private channel with Cap and said, "So how'd I do?" "Excellent. More personal with the questions than I'd allow, but you rolled with it." For some reason, the inside of Emily's power armor was getting awfully stuffy. "Thanks, sir. Anything else?" "Just a heads up. General George is probably going to want to talk to you. Try not to freak out." "I'll do my best." The shuttle thudded on the ground, and daylight streamed in as the boarding ramp lowered. Emily tried to soothe her nerves as she stepped out. She and her team followed Cap and the BD to where there was a man with an RNI duty uniform instead of power armor, standing over a map, tapping on icons, pointing at troopers, and making directives. Hell, he even wore a set of AR shades so that he could still use the HUD of the TACnet. Emily was relieved to see that he was a good-looking man, strong features, clear blue eyes, fiery red hair going grey. That boded well for how Pete would look once he was back to normal, unless they messed him up in the surgery. She noticed that anyone looking to leave this FOB from the LZ would have to walk past where the old general had set up his command post. Dab. She kept pace behind Cap and tried to look inconspicuous. Her party came to a halt, and the BD snapped off a salute and said, "You're relieved, sir." "I am relieved, sir," the general said with a return salute. "The operation is yours." "I see you have the teams out." "Aye, sir." "Consider them and myself at your disposal. R and I can do basic first aid, and our corpsmen are highly capable medics. We just only have 1 or 2 to a squad. A team of my corpsmen links up with a team of your R&I, and we repeat until one of us runs out of dudes. I have full R&I corps here, plus the Lost Boys. You wouldn't believe how much bitching about missing the fight I've heard about the past week. Bitching is time-honored tradition in any military." "Aye, that's right. I like your plan. You bring the staff? I figured I'd borrow yours and get another team of medics out in the field." "Aye. Gentlemen, introduce yourselves," the general said, and his eyes slid over Emily. "Coleman, a word, if you please." Emily gulped and nodded, and the general jerked his head off to the side. They walked a few steps in the indicated direction, and Emily blurted out, "Hello, General Sir George, sir." "Please, I am not your CO. No need to be so formal," the old man said with an easy smile. Sorry, General." "Good enough," he said as he extended his right hand, and Emily stared at it blankly for a moment. Then, seeing the problem, General George said, "If you would please open your gauntlet, I'd like to shake the hand of the woman who saved my son's life." "Oh," she said as she made the required motion, and her gauntlet sprang open with a whir and a light hissing. "Of course, sir. I was doing my job, sir." "Aye, ma'am," he replied warmly as his big, calloused hand enveloped her delicate, soft one. She knew that it had crushing strength behind that gently firm grip as he shook her hand up and down. "But it's nice to hear her thank you anyway. Thanks to you, I still have 3 living sons. 2 lost is more than enough." "Yes, I do my best, sir." The general let go of her hand and said, "Oh, by the way, they're starting to call you Timekeeper, Emily. Welcome to the Hero Club. It sucks here." Emily was too stunned to speak. End of chapter. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.